Get your ass.
Don't go to the house and really don't care.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to the August 8th, 2018 regular meeting of the Ascension Parish Planning Commission. I'd ask everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, let the record reflect that all commissioners, with the exception of Mr. Bishop, are present tonight. Can we get the introduction of staff?
Stacy Webb, Secretary for Planning and Development.
Jerome Fournier, Director of Planning and Development.
Eric Poche, Parish Planner.
Sean Chereau, Engineer Review Agency. All right, the next item on the agenda is the chairman's comments. Tonight, the chair has no comments, but defers to Mr. Fournier for an update on the master plan.
Team has created draft scenarios using the workshop results and will continue to refine and analyze them. They'll be using indicators determining differences and things of that sort. Sorry about that, John. And they're working with the transportation consultant, HNTB, who will model the scenarios for transportation impacts. So remember, we integrated the transportation master plan with the master land use plan. So we integrate that. Open houses in late September, we tentatively have scheduled for Wednesday, September 26th and Thursday, September 27th. The public will be invited to review and comment on the scenarios so planners can further refine them into a vision for the parish. The CPEX team will finalize the open house dates and locations soon, and we'll begin our outreach. The AscensionMasterPlan.com, and I should say that's all one word, AscensionMasterPlan.com website has details, and we'll have all the open house information as soon as it becomes available. We hope that Planning Commission and citizens participate in the open houses, and would appreciate if you could help get the word out on the open houses. All right, so I'll leave it at that.
All right, thank you very much. Item number 6 is a public comment on any agenda item, and I will say we will have where you have 2 public hearings or 2 periods of public hearings tonight for some family partitions and then a preliminary plat. But is there anyone, Ms. Stacy, signed up to speak on any other item?
Yes.
Okay, who is that?
Stacy Palmer.
Ms. Palmer, come forward, please, ma'am. And as in with any public hearing, we ask that you limit your time to 3 minutes so we can move the meeting along, please.
Thank you for hearing me, and I didn't plan to come, but and I want to say also that Eric and Lance have been phenomenal in the office helping me, but they've done all they can do. It's my understanding they spoke with Mr. Matass, and he said the council would have to approve what I'm about to ask you. Judge Turner has approved me under the succession of my father, free filing fees because I'm a retired disabled single woman. And I cannot afford those fees, and he's saying, or what I'm understanding, right, Mr. Matass was saying only you can approve that. So because no one's aware of this pauper status filing, and I did bring a copy and the receipt that I just paid for, because every time, as you know, you go on the clerk, you have to pay. So I just paid for my free filing papers. And I have it with me if you want to see that. So I'm trying to get that. Eric's going to bring forward next month, I believe, my approval request for my family land, which has also been a huge problem. It's been surveyed not once, but twice since 1969 in error. It has been sold in error. I am trying to live there and can't even get an approval and fees waived after Judge Turner has gotten involved to get back on my land while I'm waiting for Restore Louisiana to bring me a trailer. I'm having criminal activity problems, all sorts of problems. Every parish department wants a survey that I own it. I can't get it approved. I don't know what else to do. They've done above and beyond for me inside the office. I called Dempsey Lambert. He's on my side. My father knew his grandfather, of course, Mr. Jobert. All of that, I tried to speak with him. He said he'd call me back last night. I haven't heard from him. So I've done everything I can to prevent from having to stand before you today, but I don't know what else to do. I need this approved. I've been homeless for 2 years because no one in the parish can get this straight and has been approving these wrong, and I'm finished. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Steph, can you give us some background on this?
Yes, Ms. Palmer's got a family petition that is coming up next month, and she had asked about the fees. The current fees for the family petition that is going to be up in front of you, or is proposed to be up in front of you next month, is $525, including the fees, noticing, and recordation fees. And I explained to Ms. Palmer, I know what her situation is, and she's trying to get this done because she was displaced by the flood, and she has been homeless. But I expressed to her that the only way that the fees could be waived was through an action of the council. And so she wanted to come here
council or the
tonight.
commission?
Well, the council, because she wanted to come here and talk to you guys about it and see if you would make a recommendation to the council to possibly waive the fees, and that's why she's here tonight.
What's the pauper pleadings that were filed?
It was on from what I understand, it was on the succession, anything having to do with the succession of her father's estate.
Would this would be included in that?
Yeah, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it would be.
So,
And
while
I
he's,
have the maps also, sir. I have the good map, the old map from '69, and I also have the latest error, which is almost Eric can tell you, about a half acre off. So now everyone's angry with me of something I haven't done. I can't even get on my land to live. While waiting on Restore, they're waiting on me to bring documents, and I'm tied up in this all the time.
Eric, while Matt's looking at that, just so I can make sure I understand. So the only thing we're being asked is to make a recommendation to the council that the council waive the filing fee for her to get her family partition.
Yes, that's what she's asking.
I don't see that would be any problem if she meets all the other things.
I have one question. This order was signed by,
Judge Turner. It's on the last page, sir.
yeah, I'm looking at in September of 2015.
Yes, it's still good.
Okay.
They allow it, it's up to the judge, I think, but I did check to make sure. They allow it for a certain amount, each judge, each legal case is a certain rule. And it's all, at the end of the day, it's all up to the judge.
Okay. And there is a, and I'll just tell you that there is a, in the matter of the succession of Charles Brown Sr., is that
Yeah.
his name? And it's docket number 17438 on the 23rd Judicial District Court for
Yes,
the
sir.
Parish of Ascension. There's a informa pauperis affidavit, and there is an order at the back page. It says, considering the foregoing pleading and affidavit, let blank, and the blank is not filled in, prosecute or defend this litigation in accordance with the Louisiana Code of Civil Procedure Article 5181 et seq, without paying the costs in advance or as they accrue, and furnishing the security thereof. And there is a signature for the district judge. I honestly can't make out the signature, but I have no
I
doubt
know.
that this is a public
looked at
record. It is stamped by there is the clerk of court stamp which I think authenticates
Right.
the document. So, that being said, is this something, staff, we have to have a public hearing about, or we can just do this by our own recommendation?
I would not assume that you would have to have a public hearing on. The public hearing will come in front of you next month if she's able to move forward and actually have the public hearing for the family partition.
All right.
And I know, Eric, y'all are trying to prepare and have everything in order for next month, but until that's stamped, I'd ask that too, but if you can't, I understand. I can't get the police to help me for the criminal. I can't get anything done over there because I don't have your stamp. And all the other ones, I can show you the maps that are wrong and the right.
Can we make a copy of this to put in the record? And I'm going to ask the commission to make a motion regarding the recommendation.
Would we have to
Well,
make a
what-
motion
which-
to put it on the agenda first?
That's what I was going to suggest, make a motion to amend the agenda to add a recommendation to the parish council.
Yeah.
We have a motion. Are you making that motion?
Make the
Make
motion.
a motion to amend the agenda to add consideration of a recommendation to the parish council regarding the waiver of the fees for the filing of a plat for a family partition. Second, made by Mr. Dumas, second by Mr. Schexnayder. All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Do we have the motion then?
I'm going to make a motion to recommend to parish council that to waive the fees for this particular case in light of the evidence presented on the pauper's documentation.
All right, motion by
Second.
Mr. Dumas, second by Mr. Schexnayder. All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. The recommendation will be made, and I will have the informal pauper affidavit made part of the record if we could.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, we'll check with legal counsel on the correct procedure of getting that through the
Okay.
parish council, and we'll report back to you.
With the recommendation that we waive
Correct.
that fee.
Yes.
And if the parish president's behind it, theoretically, it shouldn't be a problem. Ma'am, here's you can have your
Thank you.
document back. I would ask that you provide a copy to the staff, or let them copy, so we can make that in the record of what we send to the council. Okay? All right, moving on then to the general business. Item number 8 is the minutes, and I need a motion to approve or deny the minutes and written decisions of the July 17th, 2018 Planning Commission meeting. Moved by Mr. Christie, second by Mr. Furman. All in favor? Aye. In opposition, hearing none, motion passes. Consent agenda, there are 4 items on the consent agenda. 9, which is item 9 on our agenda. Item 9A is the affidavit of mortgage declaration for Rose Griffin, tract Y3B1, 45197 Myers Estate Road, Prairieville, Louisiana. 9B is an affidavit of mortgage declaration for Brent E. Kelsey, lots B1A3, B1A1, and B1A2, 42387 Black Bayou Road in Gonzales. Item number 9C is an affidavit of mortgage declaration for Monique Ann Lorty Kimry, lot A1, 8493 Pertwee Road, Santa Maria, Louisiana. And 9D is an affidavit of mortgage declaration for M&P Holdings LLC, tracts A2 and A3, 36600 Seabro Road in Prairieville. Do I have a motion on the consent agenda? Move to approve the consent agenda by Mr. Dumas, second by Mr. Chasson. All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Item number 10 is a public hearing to approve or deny the following family partitions. Item 9A is the Charlie Stevens and Shirley S. Jackson and Francine M. Stevens properties, lots S1, S2, S3, S4, 2A1, and 2B1A. W.J. Quitmon Surveyors. Mr. Quitmon.
Good evening. We'll address the comments. Item number 1, actually. Item number 2 and 3, I'll be happy to explain, but if you need to, planning will explain the adjustment and additional comments if needed.
Staff?
Yes, all comments have been satisfied.
We'll go ahead and open a public hearing on this matter. Ms. Stacy, has anyone signed up to speak on this matter? No. And we will close the public hearing. Questions, comments, and/or a motion by the council, commission.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Mr. Christie, second
Second.
by Mr. Schexnayder. All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Item 9B is the Wilbur Dempsey property, lots WD6A and WD6B, McLean Taylor Incorporated. Is anyone, oh, yes, ma'am. I thought I saw you out there.
Ellen Jackson with McLean Taylor Incorporated, asking for your approval.
Staff?
All comments have been satisfied.
Go ahead and open a public hearing on this. Ms. Stacy, has anyone signed up to speak? All right, hearing nobody's here, we will close the public hearing. Questions, comments, and/or motion by the commission?
Well, so they haven't owned the property for 3 years, so that doesn't meet the requirements of family partition, correct?
No, they have. This is an estate. This was basically an order of succession. There were 6 heirs on that back lot, and one of the heirs wishes to cut their piece out of the lot.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments, and/or motion? To approve. Motion to approve by Mr. Furman, second by Mr. Christie. All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Moving on to item number 11 on the agenda, public hearing to approve or deny the following preliminary plats. Before we get into this matter, I will say that I believe that I have a conflict of interest on this. Therefore, I'm going to recuse myself from any participation in this other than my ministerial duties as chairman to run the public hearing and to count the votes, but I will make no comments nor vote on this matter. So that being said, this is a public hearing to approve or deny the following preliminary plat of Mel Grave Quality Engineering and Surveying. Mr. Murphy, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. My name is Derek Murphy of Quality Engineering and Surveying, representing SLC from Mel Grave Subdivision. This was some campsite lots originally along Severio Canal that had some access through an existing, basically a driveway coming on the back. The problem is that we've got a couple of homes out here, and it's about 911 addressing and things like that. And so there was this address, and what we're trying to do is make this a private drive so we can get addresses off this private drive. It will always remain private. It will be in perpetuity. We are having to ask for some waivers as this doesn't meet all the code as far as a minor subdivision is concerned. One is a typical street section, which requires, this has an open ditch instead of a curb and gutter section. It's a very rural area. This is basically a concrete road, if you will, for a drive, 6 inches over 5 inches of crushed concrete. Also, the street is more than 1 foot below the base flood elevation. Looking at that, as far as a waiver is concerned, this comes off of Rogers C Road and Rogers B Road. We did some shots on those, and that entire area is well below the 1 foot below base flood. So it doesn't make sense to have to raise this up 4 feet when all the roads accessing it would be underwater during any type of flooding event or so forth. So these people know this coming into here. The other waiver that's actually not on here, but I think staff mentioned it, is we had a consultant do a wetlands delineation, show no wetlands, but as far as the code is concerned, we have to provide a Corps of Engineers delineation at the time of the final plat. We're going to try to come to y'all as early as next month or the month after that with the final plat, as this is already constructed. Therefore, we're asking for that waiver as well, since that takes several months. But being that there is no wetlands showing up on the delineation, we're asking for that waiver as well. Again, we've ran some analysis on the actual road. The road is more than adequate to handle any traffic that these people can bring in, and it is always going to be remaining in private. So we're asking tonight for your approval with these waivers and stipulations, and we're here to answer any questions that you might have.
Staff?
Yes, Mr. Murphy is correct. The subdivision was originally approved as a campsite subdivision with a prohibition on any road access. There came to be a problem when the addressing came to be, because there wasn't supposed to be a road back there. Mr. Melanson did build a road back there, and as Mr. Murphy did express, there is a section in the code that allows the section that the road currently contains. However, it is not the approved subdivision section, so they would need a waiver on that. And as he stated, they would also need a waiver because it will be greater than 1 foot below the base flood elevation. And then the third waiver request is for the requirement that a jurisdictional determination be provided at the final plat stage, as the delineation was done and there were no wetlands found by the consultant. Other than that, all of the comments have been addressed. If you chose to grant those waivers as they're contained, then that it follows the code as far as all other aspects are concerned.
All right. We'll go ahead and open a public hearing on this. Ms. Stacy, has anyone signed up to speak on this?
No.
All right, and we will close the public hearing on this. Commissioners, the floor is yours.
Okay, so let me get this straight. This was approved as a campsite, and then you went on and built a road without a permit. And the road doesn't meet the standards of the parish. So the way I look at it, you don't meet you want a waiver from the typical section, the road width, the base flood elevation, your road base is not what you say it is, and then you have open ditches instead of curb and gutter. Where exactly is, where exactly is your, is your justification for the variance, and how is how are these variances not self-created?
Well, first of all, as far as the elevation is concerned, you'd basically have to build a complete dam in order to put the road in at the elevations as required. With everything, and we can get into drainage ordinances and so forth, but in this particular case, being that the road elevation coming into it is already at that elevation. So when you're talking about the hardship there is building basically a mountain to put a road in when you have to cross in low areas to get to it.
But let me ask you a question while we're talking about base flood elevation. So these camps that are being built there, how many of these homes meet or comply with the base flood elevation? Because under the camp routine, they would be on pilings and they would be subject to flooding. It wouldn't matter.
The homes are built above base flood elevate, 1 foot above, so they are on piles.
They're okay.
So they are up in the air. They do meet all the code. There's 2 homes, I think, there now. And so they do meet all the building regulations, permitting and so forth for this parish.
How did those homes get built, and what permits did they have if this was designated for campsites?
Because off of campsites, you can't off of Severio Canal.
Yeah, they got an address off of Severio Canal, and they, and theoretically, these homes are intended to only be accessible by boat.
And then built a road they weren't supposed to build, and now
Yeah,
want
the
to
issue-
retroactively have it approved.
Yeah, the issue is the road that was illegally built. All right.
Well, and then for a driveway, you can build a driveway, and that's basically what this is. What came into play was the 911 addressing. When we
Well,
so for safety reasons.
I'm going to be honest with you. From reading the staff report and reviewing this, I can see a reasonable argument, to justify the base flood elevation of the road. You're going to have to come up with an awfully good argument to sell me on the typical section, the road width, and the open ditches, and I could even almost take the open ditch, but your road base is 5 to 5.5 inches. I mean, what's the longevity of this road if it's not built to some specification?
Well, and the thing about it is a typical subdivision roadway is 3 inches over 10, 3 inches of asphalt over 10 inches of soil cement, which has a structural number of roughly 3.6 for a 25-year with the amount of traffic that's going to be on this road. This road with 6 inches of concrete with having compressive strength, because we did go do cores out here. We went and did cores to justify the width of the concrete and the thickness of the base. All right, so that's where we come up with what actually is there. 6 inches with 5,000 PSI concrete, along with 5 inches of recycled concrete. So what that told us is that this road actually has a structural number of 4.6, which is greater than the 3.6 that the parish actually requires because of the because of the concrete. So we actually have, we actually had a technical paper we kind of put together today, but actually, so we did run those numbers as far as that's concerned, and it's a greater section, and we ran it on a 25-year life.
So as staff engineer, do you agree with that structural analysis?
I haven't received that structural analysis.
No, we
to
haven't
review.
provided that to them because this kind of this came up. But we can provide a stamped technical paper from quality engineering that has that stated. That the structural number from this road is greater than the 3/10. And what happens is because you do have that concrete, and it's a 5,000 PSI per the testing lab qualifications, that's what drove the structural number up.
But this road was obviously planned at this point. I mean, if it's been done to that specification, that's indicating that this was not just somebody went out there and started pouring extra gravel and having what would be called a temporary roadway, this was more of a planned design. Would that be a acceptable assumption?
I wasn't there when it was built, so no, sir, I don't
Okay.
know that.
My problem with it, Cody called me on this one to make sure, since he wasn't going to be here, somebody knew everything that went on. As I understand it, it was approved as a campsite, which was not supposed to have a road. The road was built without the parish knowledge. The only reason the parish found out that the road was there in the first place was because a homeowner needed to have an address based off of the road for their mortgage company. At this point, the parish finds out, wait, there's a road that was poured without our knowledge, and now they want to try to fix it by getting approval for something that they weren't supposed to have done anyway. And if that's the case, and is that the case, Eric?
Actually, there's
That's-
two,
That's a pretty accurate
So-
assumption.
And see, so my problem with it is the precedent we set, if we say you can do X, but you can't do Y, and then I'm gonna come back and do Y behind your back, and I'm not gonna let anybody in the parish know I'm doing Y. Then when I get caught doing Y, now I wanna come back and get you to approve Y and grant me a variance for Y, because Y doesn't comply with the code anyway. And to get a variance, you need to prove a hardship, and the hardship can't be self-created. That's where my entire problem with this whole deal comes in. And I think that's kind of what Julio was trying to say, right? I mean,
oh, no, yeah, I mean, like I said, I can understand the argument for the base flood elevation for the road. I mean, if the existing roadways that are publicly owned are at the same elevation, there's no sense in
Right.
all of a sudden climbing 4 feet just to serve these lots. But I had a whole issue with just total avoidance of the process, total avoidance of the code, total avoidance of the approval review process to build essentially a street to access a significant number of lots. This is, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, our job is to enforce the code. It's not to forgive the code or dispose of the code.
Eric, what road section, when you talk about a variance, this is a variance for a subdivision section, but what width section is this for?
There is, in the subdivision regulations, under street requirements, there is a section that is allowed that covers the section that they placed there in 174034B5. discusses each street designated by the planning commission's collector, local, marginal, access, or rural streets shall be constructed to the following minimum standards. And B5 states, streets 20 feet wide with 6-inch concrete pavement on a graded road bed at least 28 feet wide with swale ditch slopes to be 3 to 1 on each side. So that section is in the code, but is not the typical street subdivision section, which is why they're having to ask for a variance. So it is an acceptable section, just not for a subdivision.
Even if it's a private road, because in that, I think that's one thing that they are very specifically saying, this will be a private road. Does that have
Yes, I
any
mean,
issue of
they
it?
are claiming that they don't ever want to make it a public road, so the parish would never be required to take it in or maintain it.
but it's still required to comply.
Yep.
And it was still built without the parish knowledge and the permits.
But this doesn't even comply with that section that you read out, that
Yes,
you
sir.
spec'd out.
Yes, sir, it does.
They have 6 inches of concrete, and they actually have 5 inches of crushed concrete underneath it, and all the code requires for that section is a graded road bed.
So
Okay.
this
So
section.
it does
is-
comply.
Including the width?
I'm sorry?
Including the width?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
And I
There
see-
was the road bed that was there was only 24 feet wide, and one of the comments that we came to in preliminary plat stage was that they had to make that road bed at least 28 feet wide. So they had to add 2 feet on either side of the outside of the road bed to make it comply.
And I could understand the whole open swell ditches with it below. I'm okay about that. We have other places in the parish that's successful. These houses, Derek, how high are they being built on piers? By kind of my rough calculation, it's going to need to be at minimum 4 feet off the ground to approximately 6 to 8 feet off the ground.
Give you a little history about this. Originally, the parish came in and dredged this canal and threw all this dirt and built all these pads and this whole elevation up. And that's how we ended up. We thought it would be a great idea at that time to do campsite, do a boat launch and all this stuff. Then the flood came. Of course, at that time, this was done back in 2010. And we ended up buying the property to the front of there after that, which we needed access off the back. And that's where we came in and I built a road to it. It just so happens the campsite is on the backside. So after all this happened, that we figured out that it would be much better for the parish to have $350,000 homes out there on the river with access to a private drive rather than having house trailers and camps placed on the property. And that's how we came about to get to this point. And
Grady, not to interrupt you, but since you're speaking, you need to kind of just, your name and all that other good stuff.
Oh, I'm sorry. Grady Melanson with SLC LLC, representing the Melgrave subdivision plat. So, any questions? Yeah. The houses are all built on foundation. They're built 1 foot above the BFE in that area.
Are they pier
Parish,
and
we
beam or are
pull
they
permits, and all that had to be done under the parish code.
They were slab. The two there,
And they were
are slab.
inspected, and
grade?
all the inspectors and everything drove down the concrete road. All the access was done through Chester Bullock Drive, which is the name of the little driveway that comes in. So that was done for the whole development of the two houses that are built in there.
So you're saying.
The way I learned about it, just to let you know, just full disclosure. is
Well,
to say-
they dredged the canal. Originally, that was all dredged, and all this fill was put in there. And that was, I don't know, years and years ago. And then we ended up acquiring the property after that.
I received a call from, from a mortgage company, asking me, why they can't close on the property because they can't get an address. So I reached out to the parish to find out why they couldn't get an address, and it was because they had an address from the canal, but not from the road, and the mortgage company could not close on the mortgage as it was.
Yeah, because they didn't have access to the property, basically without a private driveway. If we had the private driveway, if it stays private, all that is fine. That is the main issue.
Yeah, but, if you would have wanted to build a private driveway, you could have submitted engineering drawings, you could have gone through the process and could have gotten a permit, and you could have come in here and obtained a waiver to construct it, subject to 174034B5, and it's, and justified it because of the elevation of the surrounding roads and the conditions of the property, and it probably would have been okay. But now we're dealing with something that was completely built in violation of the code. And that's where the problem lies.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like the precedent it sets,
No.
because what you're doing is you're saying, okay, yes, I did what I wasn't supposed to do, I got caught. Approve it anyway, give me a variance,
That's
and
not
let's
the way
move
it is.
forward. I mean,
That wasn't the intent.
Well,
That's-
and then the other thing is, I could agree with that if this was a 10-foot wide crushed stone drive. Yeah, I would have issues with that as well. But this is a road. Now, we are coming back through the process, and it is after the fact, but it is done correctly. We've done the engineering studies on the road. We've met a section in the code. We've proven, or can prove, with the thickness and the base material, and it does meet the requirements for longevity for the people that are going to be living.
So
on
let me
this
ask a
private road.
question. Have you submitted drawings showing and proving all of this to the parish, and have they reviewed the drawings?
They've reviewed, or they've been given the testing lab reports of the cores and so forth.
It's in your,
I know,
that's in your
I
packet.
see the testing core reports. I'm just asking, has our engineering review agency reviewed the drawings for the road, reviewed everything, even if it's after the fact? I mean, if I built a house without a permit, okay, my only saving grace is to submit the drawings, go to the building permit, throw myself on a sword, plead for forgiveness, apply for a permit, and assuming it meets code, I could then get a permit, but I would pay a penalty fee for that. Have we applied for a permit to build this road?
Based on the fact that they originally wanted to try to come back and do preliminary and final plat at the same time. We told them they had to go through the process. So If you guys approve this tonight, then they have already done the testing on it. We'll review it. They will have to submit drawings, construction drawings, and any information that the ERA needs before next month's planning commission meeting, where they will come back and request a final plat.
I'll be honest with you. I'd rather hear from the reviewing agency after reviewing the preliminary plat before I sit here and consider granting all kinds of variances and on a forgiveness, and then, you know, I'd rather see the engineering drawing submitted, the preliminary plat submitted, reviewed by the proper agencies, and then bring it back here and say, okay, you know, and have a legitimate recommendation from the reviewing agency and staff as to what to do with these variances.
Well, the other thing is, this is a preliminary plat, just like you would of any other subdivision. Then we can come back with the drawings and then go to final plat.
Yeah, but it's after the fact.
Yeah, the road's already done.
Well, we
So-
separated it because we didn't want to do it at the same time, because Cody, the attorney basically said, well, if you go do all of this stuff in preparation for a final plat, what if the planning commission doesn't approve the preliminary plat? Then you've done all of that for nothing. That's why we made them separated. So the anticipation from that point was to do the preliminary and then go through the process where they submitted the drawings and had all the reviews done. And then, you know, the testing would have to be done. They'd have to have inspections to make sure that everything was done according to what the approved drawing stated prior to them, you know, and anything that had to be changed or fixed or updated based on the construction or the road be done prior to them coming back for their final plat approval, whether it's next month or 2 months from now or whatever.
We were gonna do that, just so you know, that's what, like Eric said, we broke it out for that reason, and so to come back.
Yeah, but the second sentence of you telling us that it complies with that paragraph says, the developer would have to increase the width of the roadway or base by 4 feet, as it is currently only 24 inches in width.
That's base, that's just some dirt work. Not the pavement.
Understood.
Yeah.
Understood.
I've got a
Now,
question.
you're telling me we could have come here and done this on a gravel road if we'd have come and done it in a different manner. But yet we built a road that's a greater standard than what the parish requires, and we're asking permission for it to remain private, no exposure to the parish, no way, shape, or form. I want to be sure you guys understand that part of it.
I've got a question. Sean, was there a drainage study and traffic study done? I know normally in your report, it just says no comment, no comment. Normally, there's a 2-3 paragraph explanation about the results of those studies.
This one was such an odd animal, to provide. Basically, the letters for regarding drainage is existing condition, pasture-like conditions. You convert it to piered type options, the land use relative to drainage, minimal or no change at all. Therefore, there's no need to do a full study to say there's no increase in runoff.
But it's not piered. They built it, they said it's on slabs, so they
Slab
built.
or pier, it's still, when it comes to drainage, there's no increase of runoff in the worlds of drainage to warrant any further when it comes to the drainage study.
Okay.
It would conclude no, it's so small, they could even argue that the small swell ditches that are next to the thing would serve as the detention is necessary. It's like.
And we could do that because it's private and not public, so we could use that as detention if.
Right, so when it comes to that and the trips for 9 lots peak hour, it's not even, it's so small, doesn't register with the traffic. So Prince provided statements saying we're at the very minimal use, there's nothing needed. So we didn't go to that level of detail on your side, but you're right. We typically have a full detail, but you would have got a whole bunch of saying not applicable, not applicable, not applicable, not applicable. And
Just so y'all know, we did provide documentation to back everything that we set up, and Sean did.
That is correct.
Yeah.
I mean, it's much different. They could have went to approach of just saying, this is so small, we're not providing anything, let this serve as a letter. They provided something in our files. And
The future homes that y'all are looking at building, what foundation types are y'all expecting to, I mean, one of the things that we've discussed, not necessarily just internally, but externally, is if you are going to have lower base flood elevation streets and open ditch, that it is going to be built on pier and beam. are the remaining, I mean, obviously you want to build
Well-
this out. If y'all would do something like that, would y'all have pier and beam
Well,
houses? going from
understand
there?
this, the spoils from the excavated at Joseph Ario is up there at 7 and 8, which is the base flood at 8.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So
there's
you're
no
adding,
additional
you're adding
fill.
a foot, which is your slab. So I misspoke earlier about being on piers, because if they
Okay.
would build it outside of that spoil bank area, then it would need to be on piers, obviously.
Right.
Well, and I mean, the topographical that we're getting, you just can't tell how large that 10-foot, 8-foot area for that spoil bank is. I mean, you're looking at an acre lot. If those
Right.
houses are built toward the front by the street,
Then they
well,
would-
then they're in the 4, and then they are way below.
Right.
So
That would be
if
correct.
you're on the banks, then that is a different but I still would have issues about building a slab house on the banks. I mean, is that
Well,
something
They're
that
outside
we're,
the right of way, yeah, they have a 25-foot right of way and everything, setbacks and all that are set up in there. They're
Well-
not being built on the canal itself, they're
Okay.
back off.
Well, again, if these houses are being permitted on the spoil bank, I'm pretty sure that with the building permits, there's some kind of foundation, drawings and so forth that is gonna protect, that person, obviously. So, depends on where they build on the lot, and you're absolutely right.
Well,
If they're
the-
building way up front and they need to be 5 or 6 feet up, then there's
That's not gonna
provisions
work.
already in the code, whether you're on a half-acre lot or 1-acre lot, to govern how, if you got, more than 36 inches, mitigation, as far as a private home is concerned. Now, if you're over here on the spoil bank, you gotta have some kind of foundation backing you up as far as the home building.
I'd like to add that the two homes that are out there right now do both have an elevation certificate filed with them. They met the criteria for the floodplain management program of the parish. Both houses were inspected. They met all the building code criteria, but they are slab on fill. There has been fill placed on the property to help them meet the floodplain requirements, and there's a slab on fill. That's how the houses were constructed.
And did that fill meet code?
It did.
How
did those
how
houses
did it-
flood in
Pardon?
2016? Were
The
they there?
houses weren't there in 2016. They're recent construction.
So if this was campsites, they would have to come in on Joe Severio Canal, right, with boats to do the inspections?
Yes.
They didn't do that.
I hear you loud and clear. And like I said, I think there's a very reasonable argument to support the elevation of the road. And I'm comfortable with recommending approval of the elevation. But I just think it is a complete disregard of the code. If we do anything else, there's no basis for any hardship. Have we done a public hearing yet?
Yeah,
Yes.
public hearing's closed.
Okay,
It's up to whether you're ready to move or you have more comments.
Well, in the interest of moving this along, I'm going to make a motion to approve the preliminary plat with the variance to the road elevation, but only the road elevation.
Not the ditches? You're not?
No,
Comfortable about
I'm not
that?
comfortable with that. I mean, everybody else has to go through the process. Everybody else has to build the road, whether it's private or public, they still got to build the same road.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Can I say one thing? I know you got to vote. Can I say something or not?
Yeah.
As far as the open ditch or the 12-foot as well, this commission has approved, and I know it was beforehand, and I know, has approved an open ditch section before with 20-foot wide for lots greater than the 1 acre. It was a private road.
Has that been the case, Eric?
Staff, can you confirm that?
Yeah, I did. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I did look at that, and that has been done in the past.
How do you feel about
Might
that.
add, a variance was granted to a commercial subdivision off of Highway 30.
No, sir, it was a-
With,
Oh,
with
yeah.
open ditches.
No, I'm talking
rather
about a
than-
residential subdivision
Yeah.
was approved recently. Maple Grove.
That's right,
Okay.
Because the lots were 1 acre or greater, it was a private road, and those two things,
Want to amend the motion?
Yeah, I think that'd be better, Julio.
All right.
Let's add the amended with the open ditches, the.
Why don't you just do a substitute motion?
Okay, well, we'll have a substitute motion following Mr. Dumas's motion and including the open ditches, allowing the acceptance of the open ditches as well.
What about the
For clients that
jurisdictional
they would comply
determination?
with section 17-4034B5, which is the open ditch cross-section.
Correct.
What
So
about
we
the
have a-
jurisdictional determination for the final plat? They would have to have that as well, or they'd have to wait. It'd probably take, 6 months to get
Say
a
that again?
JD? The jurisdictional determination, they were asking for a waiver for that as well.
Well, what this thing says at the very end, it says that they've applied the same process
Right.
and what have you, but that it should be used in planning purpose and does not relieve you of any legal obligation to obtain a JD from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and possibly obtain a Department of Army permit performing any dredging, filling, and/or construction of, in other waters, including wetlands. So, I
Yes,
mean, they've
that-
provided this documentation. If you accept it, you accept it, but I'm not gonna relieve them any obligations.
Well, I mean, that's certainly your prerogative, but typically, if a homeowner is getting a loan on a lot, then if they're gonna need a jurisdictional determination, the bank's gonna require them to get it anyway.
Right, so therefore, I think that's what I think their thing clearly states, they've made a determination, they want to live by it, and you want to, but it doesn't relieve them of any other obligation that they may have.
yep, but it's
So-
a parish obligation, not a Corps obligation.
I'm just telling you, you submitted it, I'm concerned, you don't need a variance, it's here. But if the Army Corps requires you to do something,
No,
you did it.
what I think the variance they're asking for, Julio, is that came from a consultant. That's a delineation.
Right,
The determination, or the jurisdictional determination
comes from the Army Corps.
from our Army Corps, but because that has no wetlands on it, we weren't gonna submit it to the Army Corps because we have no wetlands. And so what he's saying is, if we're not gonna submit it, because we haven't, if we'd had wetlands, then we'd have submitted it to the Corps.
Jerome, what's your position on this?
I'm going to let Mr. Shiro answer
So
that.
the-
one. He's a little more
most of
experienced with
those-
that than I do.
Yes, if you don't mind, most of those, delineation is the consultant's recommendation. Most of them have a disclaimer at the bottom to cover themselves that says, although it's my professional opinion, the official conclusion cannot be conducted unless officially submitted to the Corps and they agree that there's nothing on my project. So there's many projects we have in the parish that has a consultant says, my professional opinion, there's nothing here, but I can't say it's final because you never know until the Corps goes through the process. You have to go through that process. A typical subdivision requires you understanding that timeline because you have normal preliminary plat, construction plans, builder project. It normally fits within that 6-7 month time period.
You get an Army Corps.
Their
to send- yeah.
timing's a little bit up, but the parish requirement is, that's fine, we'll let you go along, but we still need that final letter from the Corps to say that they agree with you, or maybe every once in a while they may disagree with you and require you to mitigate it.
Okay,
It's
so.
just, it's not a Corps requirement. Mr. Murphy's correct that you have to have it for the final plat. It is a parish requirement that we choose to see that paperwork before we'll sign the final plat. Some parishes just choose to say it's up to you to take care of your own permitting, but it's not a requirement. We just assume you're gonna take care of the job for you. It's
So-
just the parish chose to step in that process a little bit.
So I have a simple question for you.
Yes.
What, if any, liability does the parish assume, for this?
None. None. It's just the parish chose to make that a part of their internal process.
All right.
Some
well, if-
parishes, you
Well-
don't have to come back to.
And I hate to just say it this way, but certain things haven't been followed, certain processes haven't been followed. We need to finally at least start making some of these processes followed, and if this is part of the process, I'm more willing to say that we need to follow it, and they're just gonna have to accept that. We're already giving in to some of these things. So
I'm
I'm
with
not
you.
gonna make that waiver part of my motion.
All right, we have a substitute motion on the table.
I'll second it.
By Mr. Schexnayder, second by Mr. Dumas. All in favor of the substitute motion?
Aye.
Any in opposition?
Nay.
All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Furman?
Yes.
Mr. Christie?
Yes.
Mr. Chasson?
No.
Mr. Schexnayder?
Yay.
All right, the count is 4-1, so the substitute motion passes. Thank you,
Thank
gentlemen.
you. You have a great night.
All right, moving on to item number 12, staff report.
Staff has no report at this point.
Thank you. Engineering staff report.
There's no report this evening.
Everybody's favorite motion?
Motion to
Motion to adjourn granted. Meeting is adjourned. There will be no zoning meeting tonight. Thank you.